Hey, it's Jenny Smith, and I'm excited to announce that my research project on cell phones in the seminary classroom is back on. I had to stop last spring because the church closed down all of the seminaries in the church, and so there was nobody actually in class to be able to practice my techniques that I'm going to be teaching you in my research project. And then I ended up, because of the timing of it, I ended up in a fight with Western Governors University. But after I finally got to the right people, they ended up agreeing with me that the research was super unique and very important, and just could not be completed with fake or imaginary data. And so they gave me a scholarship actually to complete this research. And so I'm excited to announce that I'm starting that back again. But I need your help. What I need you to do is take the pre-instruction survey that's linked below, watch a couple of videos, and then take the post-instruction survey. That's it. If you just watch one of the videos and take the pre-instruction surveys, you can do this in as little as 10 or 12 minutes. Or you can spend as much time as you want. This could take you hours. I've got several hours of training videos that will help you understand the research about cell phones, how to develop a policy, how to make plans with a co-teacher, how to use class setup to control behaviors in your classroom, how to be a gospel library ninja, tons and tons of information. So please help a sister out. I am testing the effect of training on teachers, so that's why it's really, really, really important for you to take the pre and the post survey after you've watched even just one video. It would really, really help me out. There's 9 videos. They vary in range from 9 minutes to 25 minutes. You can watch them at your leisure over the holidays. So if you're sold, go ahead and click the link below to get started on the videos. Otherwise, stay tuned. And I've got about 10 minutes of samples that you can see exactly what you're getting into when you sign up to participate in the training. Here goes. Note that many of these respondents were the same age as the students in your seminary class, just a year or so prior to participating in the study. So I think these results are pretty relevant to what's going on in the seminary classroom. During a 2015 study of 400 college students, respondents reported that they use their cell phone at least once per class, and that students generally believe this to be an acceptable practice. During a 2019 study of medical students in India, 12% stated that they wanted to use mobile phones in the class, even if it affected their learning in class. 53% used their cell phone during class 21 to 30 times each day, and 12% reported more frequent use during class. 22% claimed their need to use mobile phones outweighed the importance of learning. Researchers concluded, quote, students consider it as their right to use these devices, and they believe that this right outweighs the distraction caused in learning. Another large U.S. study showed that a majority of students believe cell phone use is always appropriate in the classroom. But in the same study, researchers found that... Now here's a list of questions you could consider. How will my policy affect students? How will my policy affect me? Will I feel better about myself as a teacher if I ban or allow cell phones? Will my policy limit my teaching options? Will my policy limit student learning options? Will my policy solve the problem? What's realistic? Let's shift gears and focus in on how to actually build a cell phone policy. You know that it's best to have either an encouraging permissive or encouraging restrictive policy, but what else should a policy include? Where do you even start? Well, first, you should talk to your co-teacher. It's possible that you have very different ideas on cell phones and how to use them during class. Work together to understand each other's abilities and limitations and find ways to be unified no matter what you choose for your policy. You'll have to correct students sometimes. Demonstrate unity and support of each other when correction is necessary. Don't be that guy who is allowing the students to get away with stuff while the other teacher is the bad guy. Discuss how, if, or when to correct infractions and when the other is teaching. Consider that correcting a student during class may be far more disruptive to the flow of the lesson and feeling of students or teachers than the actual cell phone misuse itself. What kind of infractions cause a full stop to a lesson? Like, how bad does the cell phone use have to be to stop the lesson completely? What kind of infraction can wait till after class? What might you need to do? The most effective reactive interventions are removing a student from the class, removing the cell phone from the student, or a verbal reprimand or warning. The most effective preventative interventions are having a class size smaller than 20, having a group discussion about the policy, having more group activity during your lessons, or showing videos. Now, let's have some real talk for a second. Students are not magically going to follow your cell phone policy perfectly. They just aren't. Whether the cell phone misuse is intentional or defiant, or whether the misuse is simply a mistake, you will need to correct students sometimes. How can you be certain that when you're correcting students, you are doing so out of love and not out of anger? Let's read the following information from Elder Spencer J. Condi. We've probably all felt it, whether it was as we taught a primary class, disciplined our children, or discussed a problem with our husband or wife. That sudden, irrepressible irritation, sometimes flaring into anger. And we may have let our tongues expose our exasperation, excusing our passions under the guise of reproving betimes with sharpness when moved upon by the Holy Ghost. But at such times of emotion, how can we be sure that our feelings are really expressions of the Spirit and not just adrenaline generated by our anger? It's a great question, right? Well, Elder Condi goes on to answer this question, and he says, we may be more certain that the Holy Ghost moves upon us when the intensity of the reproof is appropriate to the cause, when we reprove promptly without harboring ill will, when we follow our reproof with an increase of love, when we weigh our words and our feelings carefully, when we are and have been in tune with the Spirit prior to the reproof, and when after the reproof we feel at peace with ourselves. Before we make a correction to a student, we ensure that we know. What about student field of view and barriers? Well, students in the back only see the backs of other students' heads, and the backs of other students' heads are disproportionate in their field of view. The teacher or the TV or the board is very small in the field of view for students who are seated in the back row. Now look at these teachers to see how small and insignificant the teacher is. Although this is a setup that is intended to put the focus on the teacher, students in the back rows must look past many desks, many heads, including whatever all those people are doing, which may include gaming or texting or Snapchatting, in order to see the teacher on the board. This setup ends up actually discouraging discussion and encouraging cell phone misuse, because students know that the teachers just can't see them and the teacher isn't the focus of their field of view. Now you can alleviate some of these problems by... Perfect. Now, an important fact about the Gospel Library is that it only searches the books and the documents that are actually downloaded to your device. Gospel Library now comes preloaded with scriptures and study helps, but General Conference, lesson manuals, the church handbook instructions are not automatically included. You have to download those yourself in order for them to be included in your search results.
And since the church is always adding new material, it's useful to go download that new material from time to time so that it'll show up in your searches.
All right, now, if you're like me, you're always looking for ways to get women's voices into your classes. Now, the problem is that you often need to go make a separate search in order to be able to find women's quotes, and it's kind of awkward. Now, I'm going to take a second to show you how to include more women's voices in your Gospel Library searches. So first, go to the front page of Gospel Library, just like you're seeing here. Then scroll down to Restoration and Church History. It's this one that shows a picture of the Nauvoo Temple. Click on that. Now you'll see a list of church history topics. The one that we're interested in is women's history. So let's click on that. What you want to do here is download Women at the Pulpit, which is a collection of women's sermons that goes all the way back to Lucy Mack Smith, the mother of the prophet Joseph Smith. So click on At the Pulpit to download it, and click on Daughters of My Kingdom to download that. Both of those are full of women's experiences and women's voices exclusively, so that when you are doing a search on a topic, you will have women's sermons and women's voices showing up in your search results. This is a great way to include more women's voices in your library, in your lessons, and in your talks. All right.
Very good. How about you show us how we can tag different scriptures or different results like a ninja?
All right. Well, real gospel ninjas do use tags. Now, it's pretty obvious that you might want to use tags for something topical like prayer or faith or whatever. But I'd like you to think a little bit outside the box with your tagging. Now, First, we'll talk about how to develop a policy from scratch in a group. Your class discussion should focus on 3 things. You need to determine if a need exists, define what ideal use looks like, develop the policy and the consequences, either positive or negative. So first, how do we determine if a need exists? You can ask yourself, do we need cell phones in our class? Focus on creating lessons so engaging that youth forget their cell phones aren't in their hands. Well, there you go. It's a sample of the 9 videos that I've got up as training. In addition, there's a module if you want to get in real depth, or if you'd like to leave a training in your stake on how to develop a cell phone policy in conjunction with your co-teacher. There are 4 lessons for that. And the lesson material is already prepared. If you're a stake or a stake leader or an SNI person and would like to use that material to lead a training in your group, then you're welcome to use that as well. Please do go ahead and take the pre and the post surveys. I'll send you an email once I receive your pre-survey that gives you a link to all 9 videos, and you can watch them at your leisure, or any or all of them at your leisure. And then again, just please follow up and take the post survey so that I can wrap up this survey and publish the results so that other teachers can benefit from the information that is gleaned from this research project. Thanks so much.